The story of sovereignty. Now, sovereignty is a very complex issue. Sovereignty is the quality of having supreme, independent authority over a territory. Ultimate authority over a place. That means no other power or individual or government or entity anywhere else on the planet can supersede the actions of the rulers or ruling body of that sovereign state. But how could you prove, really, to the eyes of the world that you had sovereignty, ultimate power and authority over this territory? That's easy. You only got to be able to do one thing. Kill your own citizens. If you can do the most extreme thing to the peoples in your territory and get away with it internationally, legally, with no repercussions from any higher authority, then indeed you are a sovereign state. Let's look at some modern day sovereignty issues and how sovereignty is being redefined in very tangible ways and causing some conflict and some cooperation in today's world. So we already said there's about 192, 193 current sovereign states in today's world. But do be aware, there are another dozen or 24 areas on planet Earth that have nations of peoples within them that may or may not be actively trying to become sovereign states either now or in the very near future. I'm just going to break them down by rough classifications here of my own way of thinking. There are some places that have a serious chance of achieving sovereign state status in your lifetime. I'm thinking mostly here of Palestine. Palestine is an area over there kind of in Israel. Israel kind of occupies part of it. And Palestine and Israel have been working on again, off again on a two-state solution for Palestine to become a full-fledged sovereign state in the world. B, there are some places that have movements within them for independence and sovereignty in the future, but are not really hot and heavy. There's no real action right this second in that direction. And some examples of this would be Scotland. The Scots, the Scottish, a strong identity of nation. And a lot of people, again, think that Scotland's already a nation state. It's not. It's part of the United Kingdom. But there are some folks in Scotland who say, hell, I thought we already were a sovereign state. We should be a sovereign state again like we were back in the good old days. And there are movements for Scottish independence. Again, it's not, nobody's blowing anything up or anything crazy, but there's been talk about it, speculation. You'll probably see that come back up again. A better example is Quebec. The Quebecois in Canada. Yeah, it's French-speaking, French culture in Quebec, Canada. They have had actual referendums in the past whether to vote themselves independent, and they've been very close votes. It's not really hot and heavy right this second, but it will probably come up again in the very near future. C, there are some places that have a very active movements for independence within them, as evidenced by outright declarations of independence, petitions for independence, outcry by the people, rebel groups or terrorist groups who are out fighting for the actual independence cause and blowing shit up in places. And examples of this would be Chechnya in Russia. Chechnya is a little province, a little territory in the Caucasus Mountains that's been trying to get independent for about a decade. The Russians have had an ongoing war with them for over a decade now. D, finally, there are some places that cause all sorts of international consternation because they have pitted international powers against one another in their battle to gain independence and sovereignty. But they logically could never actually gain sovereignty by today's rules because in each one of their cases, there is a veto-wielding member of the Permanent UN Security Council who would block and veto any United Nations resolution to officially recognize that little territory. Even though there may be a whole bunch of other states that recognize that little territory, if one of that P5 says we're not going to do it, then blocked. It's not going to happen. And these are the tricky, sticky situations that we need to know about to understand today's world of conflict right now. And I'm thinking primarily here of Taiwan, Kosovo, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia. The state sovereigntist versus the internationalist. That is the battle that's unfolding in your lifetime. Which side of the fight will you be on? Well, that's up to you. I'm not here to preach or teach you to be on one side or the other. I'm talking about the ideas and what these competing things are going to bring to the future of current events, of state sovereignty, of international conflict and coalitions.